my name is Chris Van Loan II, and I make people look good on the internet for a living, which is kind of a weird profession when you really break it down like that. But that's what I do. I make people look good, sound smart on the internet. And I was thinking about what that really means when you break it down to the nuts and bolts. And it's really just a matter of creating, documenting, cutting out the bad, and amplifying the good. And I've been blessed to get to work with some of the most amazing, I think, entrepreneurs and businesses and brands in the world, but I keep hearing the same refrain over and over again, which is that it sounds like people are kind of creating content for the sake of creating content, right? Because they know that's what you're supposed to do. It's been effective for other people. So today I want to talk to you about how to get off the content hamster wheel and make media that converts, right? And so this is when people are putting a lot of energy, either internally or externally, into trying to get this stuff going, but they're not getting to where they're trying to go. So what is this content hamster wheel, you ask? Right? This is when you know the power of content, you admire and look up to and respect some of the most impactful brands in the world, everyone from Bulletproof with Dave Asprey to On It with Aubrey Marcus. And so I'm going to be talking primarily today about organic content because we've been talking about ads all week. And while I've made a lot of ads, there is so much underutilized power in organic content, right? So people get on this hamster wheel, but they don't always know where to start. And creating it can feel like a chore. It can be really time-consuming. It can be a real time pit. And worst of all, sometimes it could be a money pit. Not only is it not ROI positive, you feel like you're just burning money and not really getting anywhere. So how did I get here? Why should you listen to me? I graduated film school 12 years ago, and I was kind of directionless and lost, honestly. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life, but I got bit by the marketing bug, and I started to see a lot more of my commercial work have a bigger impact in people's lives than my film work. So I find myself working at this video marketing agency, and I start really consuming your Tim Ferriss, your Marie Forleos, your Tony Robbins, all that good stuff. I'm reading Robert Cialdini and watching Gary Vaynerchuk every night. And I really put these people on a pedestal. I thought they must have some secret magic sauce that has propelled them forward. But as I later got to meet and actually work with some of these people, I realized they're just consistent. They're just intentional about their strategy, right? So one day I get poached by this greedy capitalist, Ryan Daniel Moran. You may have heard of. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And yeah, I thought it would just be a cool job, right? It sounds prestigious, being the director of content at capitalism.com, and a lot of people gave me a pat on the back. But what I didn't realize is that I was really enrolling in like one of the world's best marketing schools. And I got to meet so many amazing e-commerce entrepreneurs like your Moise Ali of Native Deodorant, who had a $100 million exit, Susie Batiste, who I just looked up has a net worth of $240 million of poopery. And I got to stay at her house and spend time with her and her team and see what she was like off camera, behind the scenes, see how she treated her staff, and really ask her how she was thinking about content. So one day we decide to head to New York City, and I get to meet my idol, Gary Vaynerchuk. We actually went up there twice to conduct some interviews and meet with VaynerMedia and see how the actual agency, VaynerMedia, thinks about content. Not just Gary V, the internet personality, but how they're thinking about both ads and organic content. And get to meet my hero, the most famous, entrepreneur, videographer in the world, D-Rock, aka David, and asked him if I could get lunch with him and pick his brain. Just like the worst question you could ask someone. I don't know why he said yes, but he did. So we're there at VaynerMedia, and he puts together his salad. And I'm telling him, we're working with all of these e-commerce entrepreneurs, but I don't know, it just feels like they treat content as like an afterthought, right? You have product creation over here, and you have copywriting and content writing over here, and operations over here. And oh yeah, there's also like some content, right? And he grabs me by the hands and looks me directly in the eyes. I got a little nervous. I started to sweat. And he grabbed my hands and he says, this is content. This is marketing. What you need to do is combine them into content marketing. So it's fully integrated into the business. So it's an alignment with the calendar of what is happening elsewhere. And what I realized later he's really talking about is creating a content funnel, which is simply giving your audience, your customers, the next most obvious step forward for people who have raised their hand and said, yes, I want more of this, right? And so often this is what a lot of e-commerce brands are not doing. We do this with marketing our physical products when it comes to capturing cold traffic, moving from the broad, unwashed masses to moving them along a sequence like you would in an email. And just doing the same thing with content. So before we get into the kind of nuts and bolts of how to make content easy and make it convert, let's start with what most people are doing wrong, right? And I know this sounds really fundamental and obvious, but first of all, what I have witnessed is most people are not asking, why does this content really exist? Right? Is it unique? Is it different? Would I love it if I wasn't an employee or owner of this company and I just stumbled across it myself? Would I like it? Will my people like it? Is this entertaining? Is it interesting? Is there a content funnel? Is there that obvious next step that makes it easy for your audience to become more engaged and work their way down this funnel until they become a loyal, raving fan? The kinds of people who are happy to give you reviews, the kinds of people who are raving about your brand in real life to their friends, and they're not, when they're asked, like, hey, where'd you get that? It's not like, I don't know, got it on Amazon. I don't know, I saw some ad. But they want to tell everyone about your brand and become natural ambassadors. And the other really important question I think that's worth asking is there one person who's really responsible for caring? Because so often, what I've witnessed, particularly in these e-commerce brands, is that people have like their real job, and then they do some Instagram on the side. Throw out a couple of TikToks. But when no single person is responsible, and it doesn't have to be you, it could be one of your employers, it could be an influencer you work with, could be an employee, rather. Could be an agency who's really passionate about what you're up to. When no one's really responsible for caring, you can't really expect the best result, and there is this diffuse sense of responsibility. Right, so, okay, how do we make content easy? I know you guys are ready. You're like, okay, you met Gary Vee, whatever. It's cool. I'm going to talk mostly today about two interconnected concepts, which is batching and pillar content. And so what I've learned working with some of the best entrepreneurs in the world is while they appear to be ever present and constantly dropping all this stuff on social media, they're actually very productive with their time. And so batching is just what it sounds like. It is creating as much content as possible in as little time as you can. So with one of my clients here in Amber Valdez, in Austin, Texas, Amber Valdez, I helped her set up her own home studio so we could shoot a course, an info product that she sold to her audience. But also she had the ability to just flip on some lights, flip on some cameras, and with the help of her team, they researched some topics. These days you can just use ChatGPT, honestly, to help you create some outlines. And also bonus points if you notice the baby Yoda there on the couch. Little Easter egg. But she could batch hours worth of content in one day, send it to her team, and be set for months, right? And also I want to talk to you about pillar content. You've probably heard of this, but this is simply the strategy of having one central podcast, interview, speech, or show, and take that, slice it and dice it into little pieces of micro content, distributing that across all of the social media platforms, and then here's the most important step. Should have put this in bigger text, all red font. Then you look at what's resonating with your audience and repeat the process, giving people more of what they want. So you put out 10 reels, one of them does really well, it's worth investigating why. Right, so what's right for you in terms of creating your own organic media, creating systems and processes to regularly have things coming out? Do you want to self-produce it all, have an editor, work with an agency, bring on an employee in-house, maybe don't want anything to do with it and try to work with an influencer? Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to decide, but I want to tell you about one of my friends, Evan. Just bumped into this guy at a different conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is the kind of guy who loves creating his own content. He was a fireman in the Redwoods, and he had a buddy start making about $8K a month on Amazon and said, yeah, I should get into this. So him and his wife start their own arts and crafts company called Scorch Marker. And he just starts making content on YouTube, on Instagram, flips on his camera, shows the product in use, documents the creation of the process. 1, 2, skip a few, the guy has 1 million followers on TikTok, maybe about 24,000 followers on Instagram, has built a 30,000 person email list, and has a multi-million-dollar business, right, in the mid-7 figures. But the reality is most of you are not Evan. I mean, this isn't even me. Like, I don't want to be on camera that much. That's not for me. I could use some help, some assistance. And so Evan later does bring on an editor, and then later that turns into a part-time employee within his business. And so this is kind of a continuum and a spectrum in which you decide what amount of media is going to be the right fit for your business. I'll tell you about two of my clients I've worked with in my agency, Stefanos Safandos and Regina Thomas Hauer. This is a great example of batching content. And so with Steph, we ended up shooting an entire course, an entire info product in 3 days. And the way this really works is we brought him into the studio. We asked him a bunch of questions after working with his team on a couple of prompts. He didn't have to do any preparation. He came in, answered the questions in long form. And in 3 days, we had the entire course ready. We shot about 50 reels, had a bunch of pictures, different outfits, different lighting, different locations. And this is the way it's done. With Regina, she actually had a bigger course, a master class she was selling for $20,000 a pop. And so it took about 3 weekends to produce it all. We shot one massive course, a mini course, about 200 reels, bunch of pictures. And so within a couple of days, she's basically set on content for the rest of the year, right? I'll tell you one more example. Some of my clients, Aja and Nita in Austin, Texas, they're an awesome married entrepreneurial couple. And I helped Nita launch her podcast. But between the two of them, it just kept growing and growing, where now there's 2 podcasts, and there's 2 YouTube channels, and there's all these live events, and there's all this stuff they're doing. And so they ended up hiring 2 full-time employees, as well as a bunch of editors and virtual assistants all over the world. So this is also not going to be most people in this room, right? And you'll probably fall somewhere in between, although I have talked to a few of you who do have multiple full-time employees creating content. So let's talk a little bit about influencers. This is one of my clients, Mel Wells, who has a health and wellness spirituality podcast. And she used her platform to launch native deodorant and all natural. There's a lot of deodorants, these guys. I don't know if you've noticed that. We might be kind of at capacity on deodorants. But she used her podcast to have really strong sales right out the gate with this new deodorant brand. And when I've talked to a lot of e-commerce business owners. What I've heard is that a lot of people say, yeah, I tried this strategy, but it kind of fell flat. It didn't really go anywhere. Nothing came of it. And to that, I would say building a relationship with an influencer is just like building a relationship with any other human being, right? And that it's gradual, it's slow. And so often, I hear from you, you slide in their DMs, you say, hey, I want to partner with you, I love what you're doing, and you kind of scare them off and it's a little creepy. Nothing comes of it. And so I would think of this relationship building as just another kind of relationship building, but also accept that you might have to roll your sleeves up and it might take 10, 20, 50, I don't know, 100 people you have to reach out to before you find that perfect alignment with your brand. The other thing I'll say about influencers is, someone who's worked with a lot of them is, honestly, I think they need you a lot more than you need them. Or I don't know if I got the order on that right. But you know what I'm saying. Influencers are just between you and me. Don't let this get out of the room. Not as successful as they look on the internet. And with us heading into what's probably going to be a recession in the next year or two, it's probably more true than ever before. So I like to think of investing in influencer relationships the same way you would invest in a stock, in which you want to invest while they're undervalued. Try to find that person, the micro-influencer with 10, 20, 50,000 followers, who's kind of punching above their weight class in terms of engagement, in terms of rabid, loyal fans, not somebody with 200,000 followers, most of which are fake, who nobody really cares about. So what I've witnessed in reality is a lot of e-commerce brand owners kind of have 2 models to content creation. There's this hope and pray model of just throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. It's a bit random. And it reminds me of this brand owner I met last month, actually. And he was telling me about how this random person on TikTok, he owns a supplement brand. They did a video featuring his product, kind of went viral, and it doubled his sales for 2 months, right? Who wouldn't want that? But guess what happened after those 2 months? It just came right back to baseline. And this is what we don't want, is to kind of be at the mercy of the whims and trends and ups and downs of the internet. And then there's what I call in my agency the expansion-based content model, which is really what I was talking about when I said you listen to your audience, you look at what is performing well, you give them more of what you want, and so the next piece of content you're going to create just seems easy. It seems natural. can have easy growth, create a bunch of loyal, raving fans. And if you think about it, that's really what Ezra does. That's what Ezra Firestone does. And, you know, Ezra has been so successful for so long. If you really think about it, I mean, do you think he has to do a podcast at this point? Do you think he has to put out so many reels with free information? No, of course not. But he does it because he cares and because he has a team that cares. So could I get a little round of applause for Ezra and the team in the back? I thought a lot of these influencers had some secret, special, magical sauce to get them to where they were, but what I've come to realize is that it's really just a matter of care. It's just a matter of loving your audience. I'm sorry if that sounds like not concrete enough, don't have enough acronyms for you, data and charts. But at the end of the day, it's really just intention. It's caring about your audience. I know content creation can seem a little frustrating and intimidating at times, but at the end of the day, it's really just a matter of creating, documenting, cutting out the bad, and amplifying the good. So hey, my name is Chris Van Loan II. I'm a content director for entrepreneurs, and I love working with people like you who are really passionate about making the world a better place, about serving the world unselfishly and profiting along the way. Thank you so much.